And I've learned that living with small things sometimes means learning to let them go. Listen, I didn't actually do anything wrong. I just made a joke, that's all. We were all laughing, the mood was light, and I said something harmless about him. Something everyone already suspected anyway. It wasn't cruel. It was meant to be funny. But he didn't laugh. He stood up, left the table, and the next morning, a courier dropped off an envelope that shattered everything I thought I had under control. Before we get deeper into what happened, do me a small favor. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and tap that hype button to help more people find these stories. It all began as a joke. We were out with friends at the Gilded Fork, drinks flowing, laughter echoing, teasing each other like always. Someone made a comment about relationships, and I, feeling bold, said that some men simply don't measure up. I smiled, placed my hand on Julian's arm, and added, "Luckily, I've learned to manage smaller things." For a heartbeat, the whole table went still. Then someone forced out a laugh, and I joined in too, louder than necessary, pretending it was nothing. But Julian didn't laugh. He just looked at me with that calm, unreadable expression that made the silence feel heavier. I told him to relax, that everyone knew I was joking. He didn't respond. He simply folded his napkin, set it down neatly, said he'd take care of the bill, and walked out before dessert ever arrived. My friends tried to smooth it over with nervous laughter, but I saw the pity behind their smiles. When I came home later, Julian was already packing a small bag. I asked where he was going. He said, somewhere quiet. I told him he was overreacting. He said, "You don't get to laugh at someone and still call it love." Then he left. The next morning, his wedding ring was sitting on the kitchen counter, just lying there like evidence of something broken. I called my mom and told her he'd left over a stupid joke. She sighed and said, "Men can be so sensitive." That made me feel better for a little while. But that night, when I looked at the empty half of the bed, I felt something I hadn't planned for, a silence that refused to leave. Julian didn't come back that week. He stayed with his mother, Elaine, and ignored every message I sent. I texted, called, even sent a voice note apologizing if he took things the wrong way. Nothing. At work, I turned the story into something funny. My coworkers laughed. One woman said softly that her husband would have been crushed. I said men just needed thicker skin. Outwardly, I smiled. Inside, something was twisting. I started spending more time at the salon, staying late, chatting with clients, especially Adam, the one who always flirted and said he liked how brutally honest I was. It felt good to be admired again. One night, I posted a photo with a caption, "Honesty over sensitivity." Adam liked it, and I stared at that little heart on my screen for way too long. A few days later, I stopped by the house to grab some mail. His office door was cracked open. On the desk was a letter from a law firm, Porter and Reeves, LLP. My stomach flipped. I picked it up, read the first line, "Preliminary consultation for marital division." I dropped it like it was on fire. That evening, I called his mother. She said he didn't want to talk. I told her he was being cruel, that no real man ends a marriage over a dinner joke. She said quietly, maybe it wasn't a joke to him. The next morning, he finally sent a message, "Please respect my space." I read it over and over, realizing space was something he'd already taken long before I noticed. 2 weeks later, a friend invited us both to a birthday dinner. I went, convinced Julian wouldn't show. I wanted to prove I wasn't ashamed. I wore a red dress that turned heads. When I arrived, everyone was polite but distant, the kind of quiet that says they've already heard the story. I laughed too loudly, made jokes about marriage drama, pretending I was fine. Halfway through the night, Julian walked in, calm, neatly dressed, even smiling. My chest tightened, but I refused to let him have the final word. When the conversation turned to couples, I said, "Well, some of us already know I like to joke about size." The table froze. Julian didn't flinch. He simply looked at me and said, "And I've learned to live with small things by letting them go." He lifted his glass, left it untouched, and as he turned to leave, placed an envelope where his drink had been. My hand shook as I opened it. Draft divorce papers. Dated 2 weeks before that night. He'd already planned this. I wanted to rip them apart, but I felt everyone's eyes on me. So I smiled and said he was being dramatic. Then I laughed, again, when I got to my car. I cried for the first time in years. I told myself it was anger, not heartbreak. But deep down, I knew the truth. He hadn't humiliated me. He'd simply stopped letting me hide behind my laughter. After that night, everything felt hollow. I still went to work, still smiled, but every glance from people felt like quiet judgment. I told everyone Julian was petty, that he couldn't handle a confident woman. I even said the divorce papers were just a bluff. Saying it out loud made it sound almost believable. But when I went home, the air itself felt sharp, like the house could sense I was lying. One afternoon, I unlocked his office again. The door was locked now, but I found a spare key. His desk was spotless, except for several binders, neatly labeled in his handwriting. Expenses, messages, custody prep. My throat tightened. I opened the first one. Screenshots of my texts, my posts, notes about things I'd said. Even a printout of that photo with the caption, "Honesty over sensitivity." Another binder held school reports about Noah, missed pickups, notes about behavior. On one page, he'd written, "Emotional neglect observed." I slammed it shut, shaking. He'd been collecting evidence. Quietly, methodically, like a man preparing for trial. I told myself he was cruel, obsessive. I called my mother again, said he was trying to trap me. She said maybe I'd given him too many reasons. I hung up. That night, I sat in his chair, staring at those binders. That's when I realized he didn't need to yell or fight or chase me. He'd already built his escape, one calm, careful note at a time. The mediation was held in a small downtown office. I wore black, trying to look composed and serious. Julian was already there, sitting beside his lawyer. He greeted me politely, like a stranger from work, not a husband. The mediator asked if I wanted to speak first. I told my side, how it was all a misunderstanding, how humor was my love language, how he'd blown everything out of proportion. I even smiled at the end. Then his lawyer opened a folder, filled with pages of records. My posts, my messages, bank statements, witness notes. My stomach dropped. The mediator flipped through them silently, his face unreadable. I said Julian was twisting things to make me look bad. His lawyer replied calmly, "These are her own words." I tried to laugh it off, but my voice cracked. Julian spoke once, just once. "I'm not here for revenge," he said. "I just want peace for me and for Noah." The way he said peace sounded like a door closing. The mediator nodded, read the recommendation. Custody and property to Julian. Separation finalized. I couldn't breathe. He stood, thanked the mediator, and walked out without looking back. I wanted to scream, to make him see I was the one hurting now. But the room stayed quiet. Only the rustle of papers, like a slow applause for a man who had finally stopped listening. The house is empty now. His clothes, his books, even his scent, gone. On the kitchen table lies the final decree. Both our names printed neatly. I thought I'd feel angry, but all I feel is quiet.